Ashe, greetings, a grand rising, a grand day to you all once again, my fellow natural, native, earthly humans. And welcome back to this part 2 of another perspective analysis and interpretation of the very famous prose poem called Desiderata by the late Max Ehrmann. Yes, you don't know that it is yours truly, I, the Mystic P, along with, of course, my companion. Yes, this is my old bass guitar. And if you listen very carefully, you will hear my chirping bird sounds right here. Chirping and echoing the natural healing, the natural comforting, the natural charming, the natural therapeutic sounds in the background, in the foreground, and all around. Yours truly, I, the Mystic P. You don't know. Nothing compared with the natural sounds. Now, in part 1 of this, let's call it series, of my interpretation of Desiderata. In part 1, you might remember, for those of you that watch, I took time out and I answered the following, 4 questions. Question number 1 was, what is Desiderata? Now, if we're talking about something, first we have to know what we're talking about before we can make sense. So we can talk sensibly about it. So, my thing is to answer the question, what it is. What is Desiderata? Question number 2 was, what does the word Desiderata actually mean? Question number 3 was, what are some of the things that are most desired, or that we most desire in our lives and in the world today, at this moment? What are the things that are most desired in our world today? And question number 4 was, who is, or if you prefer, who was Max Ehrmann? He's now the late Max Ehrmann. Now, if you didn't take time out and watch part 1, or if this is the first time you come across this video, and you haven't yet watched part 1, I would suggest that you please do so before watching this part 2, or that you please watch it as soon as you finish watching this part 2. For as I continue, and no doubt you too may see the reasons for knowing the answers to those 4 questions. And before delving in and sharing some of my perspectives, my analysis and interpretation and insights of this prose poem called Desiderata, I would like to first answer the question, what is a prose poem? What is a prose poem? Now, let me answer this question by first, looking into what is a prose poem. Let me answer by first looking at what is a poem. A poem, by meaning and definition, is, and I quote, a piece of writing that partakes of the nature of both speech and song, that is nearly always rhythmical. I can't pronounce that word, honestly. Rhythmical. Usually metaphorical, and often exhibit such formal elements as meter, measurement, rhyme, and stanzaic structure, unquote. That is one definition of the word. Simply put, of the word poem. A poem is, simply put, a poem from my own summary. A poem is a piece of writing with speech and lyrics that rhyme. Let me give you an example of a poem with speech and lyrics that rhymes. And this is what I learned from way back when, little child in school. And I learned this poem, one of the first poem, I can never forget it. We were taught. It said, I think it was Miss Miller who taught, Miss Drummond, sorry, who taught us this poem. Anyway, it said, heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward through the night, unquote. And that was by the famous poet called Henry Wordsworth Longfellow. Can't forget that, way back when. Now, let's look at the meaning of the word prose. We're talking about poem. Let's look at that prose. Look at the word prose. Prose, rather. The word prose, by meaning and definition, again, I quote, a written or spoken language in its ordinary form without metrical structure, unquote. That's the meaning of prose. Now, here's one dictionary's definition of a prose poem. And I quote, a piece of writing in prose, as defined earlier, in prose, having obvious poetic qualities, including intensity, compactness, prominent rhythms, and imagery, unquote. Now, here is a quote from Wikipedia that, in my opinion, sums it up, quite beautifully. Sums up prose poem quite beautifully. And I quote, prose poetry is poetry written in prose form instead of verse form, while preserving poetic qualities such as heightened imagery, parathesis, and emotional effects. Hope I pronounce that word right. Parathix. Bear with me. Pronounce it for yourself. Unquote. And that is the reason why Desiderata, when you understand these meanings and definition of these two words, prose and poem, then you will see the reason why Desiderata is called a prose poem. Now, without detaining you any longer, I ask that you please join me again tomorrow for part 3. And that is if I'm gifted with another day and one in which I continue to experience and full joy, good health, freedom, safety, and good relationships with people like you, my listeners and well-wishers. Then I will begin in part 3, I will begin to share with you my perspectives, some of my perspective, my analysis, and interpretations and insights as well of Desiderata, aka another perspective and interpretation of Desiderata by yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. So please stay tuned. And in the meantime and between time, please lively up yourself, full joy, and be more and more. Because whether I like it or not, these are the last days of our lives. Full joy, and be more and more, and much, much more. And definitely, I don't wish that you be less. Bless, not at all. Be more. For I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, Ashe, I say.